Hello y'all, my name is Molly Schloss, and today we're going to be talking about Stephen King, also known as the King of Horror. It's not like I'm a huge fan or anything. Stephen Edwin King was born on September 21st, 1947 in Portland, Maine to his parents Donald and Nellie Ruth King. Shocking that he is an October baby, isn't it? After his parents divorced, King lived between Indiana and Connecticut for several years before returning to Maine for high school and college. Stephen King pursued a degree in English at the University of Maine at Orono, where he wrote for the school newspaper and published his first short story. Upon graduating in 1970, he aimed to become an educator but had no luck finding a position until late 1971 when he began teaching at Hampton Academy. It was this same year that King married fellow writer Tabitha Spruce, with whom he had 3 children, Joe, Naomi, and Owen, who is also an author. King's writing career took off in 1974 with the publication of his first novel, Carrie, and the rest is history. With over 4 million copies of Carrie sold to date, the success of his book allowed King to begin writing full-time. Since then, King has written over 82 novels, published 62 of them, and he has written just around 200 short stories and 20 novellas, many of which have been published in compilations. Stephen King is the only author in history to have more than 30 of his works become international bestsellers, and he has sold well over 350 million copies of his books to date. Along with being awarded 104 prestigious awards, King has been nominated for a total of 279 titles. Now you might be asking yourself, what makes Stephen King such a prolific author? Though Stephen King is known as the King of Horror, he is also wildly successful and well-versed in several other genres, including supernatural, fiction, suspense, crime, science fiction, and fantasy. What makes him popular is not merely the tormented characters and frightening monsters he crafts vividly on the page, but rather how he breathes life into every character, making them dynamic and relatable. King relies on detailed imagery, figurative language, diction, and suspense to navigate his complex, enthralling plotlines and yank readers right into his universe. Whether or not you've read one of King's books, if you haven't, I have some recommendations I'm going to share with you, or seen a movie adaptation of one of his horrific works, Stephen King is a household name and worthy of recognition. Now, because I love this story so much, I am going to share some stories that exist outside of the cover of this novel. Stephen King developed the plot for The Shining in a secluded, historic hotel in the Rocky Mountains. Sounds familiar, right? In the height of his struggle with addiction. King stayed at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado with his wife Tabitha in 1974. They stayed in room 217. I stayed in that room, I swear I did. Here's the key to prove it. I was there. It was here that King was jolted awake by a nightmare. He got out of bed, stared out the window, and in the time it took him to smoke one single cigarette, he had laid out the entire plot for The Shining all at once. Now, I could recommend to you a dozen books to read from Stephen King, like Carrie, The Stand, Cujo, Salem's Lot, Night Shift, Christine, The Long Walk, Mr. Mercedes, Green Mile, all of which are great. But today I'm going to start with my favorite, The Shining. The Shining, a gothic horror novel published in 1977, follows Jack Torrance, a writer and struggling alcoholic who accepts a caretaker position at the secluded Overlook Hotel in the Rocky Mountains. Jack brings his wife Wendy and his son Danny as he works to endure a painfully long winter in a hotel plagued with a dark history that he slowly unearths. Danny, his son, has painfully vivid psychic premonitions that revealed the disturbing truths of the hotel, unbeknownst to his father. Haunted by the hotel and the consequences of addiction, Jack is overcome with homicidal thoughts that complicate the already terrorizing novel. You're not going to want to read this one alone at night. The Shining was published in 1977, and due to its renowned success, Stanley Kubrick began filming the film adaptation of the novel in 1978. After 2 years of production and stellar performances by Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd, the film was released in 1980 and grossed over $47 million in revenue. Fans around the world raved about the thrilling storyline. Stephen King hated it. You see, even though The Shining is jam-packed full of monsters and horrific elements, the real monster in the story is addiction. Stanley Kubrick completely ignored this key element of the plot and created an evil Jack Torrance with no redeeming qualities. The problem is, Stephen King based Jack Torrance on himself, personifying his struggle with addiction and the problem it unearths in familial relationships. In response, King filmed a miniseries in the Stanley Hotel. The 3-part series was released in 1997 and starred Steven Weber, Rebecca De Mornay, and Cortland Mead. This adaptation of the story was remarkably similar to the novel, as it was directed by Stephen King himself. It was in this series that King was able to fully realize his vision on the screen and keep intact the storyline and characters that he had created. I hope you will check out Stephen King's The Shining or any of his other critically acclaimed novels, novellas, or short stories, and I am praying that you consider him to be a part of your new literary canon. Bye, y'all!